Welcome back to the Box Brothers podcast. He is Nick Perez. I'm Ben Perez, and today we are reviewing the Austrian Grand Prix. Nick, we have a lot to talk about today. Antonelli crashing into Max, and Lando showing that he has that dog in him, coming home, converting his pole, and finishing on top of the podium. So, Nick, let's start. What brutal?
It was brutal.
Let's get into your
watching Max get spun out at the
starting
very beginning of the race. Even on broadcast, I didn't even see Antonelli. He just came out of nowhere, took out Max, and I said, "My guy, he's out." It made me so sad. I was bummed for the rest of the race, but it was just such a
from so far back.
I don't think it was a
that
lunge.
was the most.
He was late on the brakes, and then he hit the brakes late, locked up his rears, swerved to avoid the racing bull, and then hit the Red Bull. So he swerved to avoid Lawson, and then hit Max, and it was just like, what are we doing? It was just such a bummer. Oh, man. Really bums me out for Max's day.
I mean, it ruined both of their races, and it ruined all of my picks that I had made, because I was hoping that Max could come up from nowhere, show a little bit more pace than he did after being impeded slightly on Saturday in qualifying. But with him out of the race, there was really no one to stop Piastri from getting that second, if not coming up to first, because that opening stint up into about lap 20 is when Lando first pitted. But the battle between Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri on track was probably the most exciting part of this race.
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. I mean, I do have to throw a little shout out to Bortoletto, but we'll get to him in time.
Yeah, good on Bortoletto putting together an entire race weekend. But let's stick with the battle up front, because I was afraid that Piastri was just going to cook his tires after following that close to Oscar and lap in and lap out for up till Lando pitted on 20. He was within most of the time half a second.
Yeah, it was insane racecraft from the both of them. But there was just a couple of little moments that made the deciding factor, and that late lockup, the lap before Lando pitted, was the big deciding factor in that strategy call working out for Lando. I feel like they both had the pace today.
Oscar's lockup on turn 4 coming down the hill.
Yeah. It would be turn 4, but that lockup on basically Lando's in lap for his pit, it just changed the whole trajectory, because Oscar wasn't able to speed past him and build up that gap for him to pit into. So he took the tire advantage coming in late to the race, and he had it, but he just ran out of time to make the move happen.
Yeah, that flat spot on his tire from that lockup really hurt him. I know the race engineer said that it wasn't anything that they could see on their monitoring boards, but it did affect his gap. And he was able to call his race strategy. They asked him if he wanted to come out 1.8 seconds behind Lando or 4 seconds with a delta, and he did choose the delta. That ended up hurting him later in the race, because there were just so many back markers that they had to get through and so much traffic that it hurt Norris, which allowed Piastri to get back into it close the gap to 2 seconds, or within 2 seconds. And then once Piastri was trying to make his way through, it also hurt his car and his pace.
100%. And I mean, now I'm going to throw it back to Bortoletto. Him fighting Alonso at the very end almost could have ended really, really badly for all three of them, including Lando. So
yeah, it was Saudi Arabia earlier in the year that Bortoletto did hit Alonso.
Yeah, and then Colapinto forced Piastri off the track.
All right, so I have this written in my notes. It was lap 54 of the race, and Colapinto is fighting with Yuki Tsunoda to get track position, and then Oscar is coming up through the back of the grid trying to essentially pass the black markers. They both got blue flagged, and Colapinto does the move on Yuki Tsunoda around turn 3. Yuki gets him back coming out of that turn, and Colapinto's trying to do the switchback coming up the inside, and he just doesn't see Oscar Piastri. So when he tries to get the slipstream behind Yuki Tsunoda going back down the hill towards turn 4. He literally drives Oscar off the road and puts him into the grass. I literally thought that Colapinto was going to crash out.
I would have been so upset if that ended up happening. I just was kind of baffled by it. I didn't really even know what was going on. I was like, huh? What just happened?
The only way that makes sense is that the Alpine race engineers didn't tell Colapinto that Oscar was coming up to his rear.
Well, I mean, they probably didn't, because he was probably in the middle of a battle going back and forth. Maybe just no one in the garage saw it either.
I don't know. I'm just glad that he did. I'm just glad that he did keep it clean. Oscar came away unscathed. Maybe had a little bit of dirt in his tires, which hurt grip a little bit, but that was probably the most baffling thing of today. He did get a 5-second penalty for causing that incident. And it was hilarious because even with Yuki, he had gotten a 10-second penalty for something that he did earlier in the race.
Man, but
so
I will say...
it was really the last two brain cells fighting over third place.
I will say, though, Red Bull is in such a predicament right now because it really just put a spotlight on it today because Max crashed out. But, if Max crashes out, they're a backmarker team. They go straight from fighting for a win to a backmarker team because he has no teammate. Yeah. It's just so weird to see that happen in real time. Because, I mean, Yuki was fighting for Colapinto for last.
He was out-qualified. So I know we've talked about it a couple times. So, Nick, if you were a team principal at Red Bull, would you build a car that was easier to drive or a car that is going to get the most potential out of Max?
Well, here's the thing. You sacrificed last year, and last year was the first time we really got to see it. But you sacrificed the team championship for the drivers' championship. That was the first time the drivers' championship and the team championship hasn't been won by the same team in.
Well,
I forget how long.
08. Or, yeah, 08?
07, I think.
Ferrari?
It was either 07 or 08. But it's been 20 years almost 20 years since the two championships have been won by different teams. So it was just a super interesting thing to see that shift start to happen, especially with Perez starting off the year really well and falling off. So I don't know. I would think you would want to build the car more for balance and have Max's setup be more extreme, because the thing that they said that they were having a problem with was Max wasn't being as vocal as he needed to be with his development, is what they said. He was tolerating a lot of stuff that he shouldn't have been tolerating.
Yeah, that's because maybe he had one foot out the door already and was looking at that Mercedes 2026 engine and was like, "Ooh, that's sexy." It's like the meme with the dude and the boyfriend, or the boyfriend and the girlfriend walking down the street, and then dude has his head turned back and he's like,
"Yeah." You can throw a picture of it on screen whenever.
Yeah.
In post, but. Yeah, I mean, it's just Max still Mercedes hasn't signed George yet. So
no, the news sources that I've seen is that Silverstone, they're going to announce George Russell's contract. It might be a 1-1, so 1 year for 2026, and then they have the option for 2027. But I think that Max might wait a year to see how the grid shakes up, to see how Aston Martin's doing, to see how Mercedes is doing, and then choose his seat based off of who can give him a championship in 27-28 before he retires and moves over to Le Mans.
Wouldn't it be funny if at Silverstone, there's all this hype, all this build up about announcing George as the next Mercedes driver, and then they announce Bottas or Max, or they just announce Max as the new driver for Mercedes going to partner Antonelli? How crazy would that be?
I would absolutely love that. And I know Kimi would also absolutely love that, because I know even after their crash, he apologized to Max. He said it was his bad. But I know Kimi would love to race and learn under Max. And if we had Max mentoring Kimi, then we can have a new dark Sith Lord coming into
It'd be like Palpatine and Skywalker.
Yeah, Palpatine and Vader. Let's go. All right, Nick. So let's just go through the grid and talk about the other teams as well. Let's get with Ferrari because they had pace. They were too far away from McLaren's to really cause them any trouble for second place. I think I had written down after lap 6 so lap 6 was when Piastri did the lunge, but on lap 9 the McLarens had already built a 3.3 gap to Ferrari, and so Ferrari didn't have the pace, but the new upgrades that they did bring, so that new floor that Ferrari integrated this weekend, looked like it did push the car in the right direction. It did help stabilize that back suspension that they had redesigned, and it looks like they are progressing in the right direction come the end of 2025 and the start of 2026. So any thoughts on Lewis and Leclerc coming home 3-4 today?
I mean, I think every week they're starting to get better, and I think they will have a very competitive car come the next regulations. I mean, it's Ferrari. They're always going to have a competitive car. But today, they just kind of seemed like they were lost in like no man's land, just kind of stuck there waiting.
Yeah, because
nothing really happened to shake it up.
They were clearly behind the McLarens, but they were clearly above Mercedes and the rest of the grid. Mm-hmm. So you are correct that it was that no man's land.
But they had like no really like challenging pace, I guess would be the way to say it.
Yeah.
That they had nothing to go spice up the race.
Yeah, and I think that they could have spiced up the race if not for pitting Lewis Hamilton. Because I think Lewis came in, I heard this over the radio during the broadcast, probably I think around like in the 30s, but Lewis had called his race engineer after they had told him to box. And he was like, no, I want to extend out on these tires. He wanted to go to a one-stop race. But if he were to have gone to a one-stop race, then he would have been well within the Leclerc firing range. And in the back of my head, I was like, is this a conspiracy for Ferrari? Or is this a conspiracy from Ferrari that they don't want Hamilton to start competing with Leclerc because they didn't allow him to make that pit stop call and really extend on that medium stint he was on? I'm
really wondering, when does the breaking point come in for Lewis? When he gets mad and just says, "No, I'm not coming in. No, I'm not pitting. No, I'm going to race Leclerc." Because Ferrari is the team that's known for team orders, especially with Michael Schumacher. That whole era was just dominated by team orders. So what happens when Lewis doesn't want to play along anymore?
Yeah, I don't know, because I had made a comment on one of the YouTube posts that said Leclerc needs to mature because it's like a child who doesn't want to say no to their parents. Like once they're an adult, they are still scared to essentially exert their own self-independence. And I had made that comment, and now that you said that, I was like, well, is there something in the contract that the Ferrari drivers can't disobey team orders? Because I don't think that's true, because we saw last year Carlos Sainz disobeyed team orders and called his own strategy, which made his own luck. So,
also you see where he is now. He's not in a Ferrari.
Not even starting races in Austria. But I think he can, and I think the breaking point probably will be in Silverstone next week, because if they put him on a poor strategy around his home race, track that he is extremely good at, I don't see him listening to Ferrari and coming in when they say he does, if he thinks that he's on a better race strategy.
Which, I mean, that could lead to a lot of drama happening in these next couple of weeks.
I'm here for the drama. It would be more drama than the F1 movie that I went to see. So, but I do want to, quick side note, I do want to do a full honest review on that.
Well, I'm going to go watch it today, 3 o'clock.
Okay.
So,
all right. Well, I'm excited. Enjoy that this afternoon. So moving down the list, Nick, we can get in. We talked a little bit about Mercedes with the crash that Antonelli did. George Russell came home in 5th. Wasn't too much to talk about for him. Another top 5 place, Mr. Consistency on that. I think this is
I just
where,
really just don't like George Russell. I just don't
that's
like
fair.
him.
I think this was his best, like the maximum that they could do, because the hot weather again just seemed like it tore through their car and zapped any pace that it had. The next one, probably one of the most exciting drivers of today is Liam Lawson. Came home in 6th ahead of Isaac Hadjar. Nick, so what do you think of the Racing Bulls? They looked really good. We're teasing a double points finish with both Isaac and Liam, but Liam put together a fantastic weekend around the Red Bull Ring here.
Oh yeah, 100%. Sorry, I was just pulling up the race results. Oscar finished 12th, right? Or no, not Oscar.
Isaac, yes.
Yeah, Isaac finished 12th.
We got his name correct this time.
Yeah, I was really surprised by how well they did, but another thing that surprised me was how well the Haas did. I was really, really surprised by how well they did.
Yeah, they came home 10th and 11th, and Esteban Ocon snuck into the points. They do perform really well around here. They definitely were helped out by Max, Kimi, Carlos, and Albon all DNFing throughout this race. But they know how to set up a car and know how to bring home good race finishes here.
100%.
So anything for Lawson? Does this save his seat for next year?
Well, the Red Bull climate is so interesting right now because we don't know who's going to stay and who's going to go. They don't know if they're going to keep Yuki at that car or if they're going to just release Yuki to the dogs. So, and I don't think Isaac Hadjar would be ready to just make that full jump up yet. So, and you can't promote Lawson back. So they're kind of in this. But also if you keep Hadjar too long, you run into a Yuki Tsunoda scenario. So this is all just really weird running with two teams.
So Nick, I'm going to put you on the spot. Give me your predictions for the 2 Red Bull Racing teams for seats.
I think it'll be Max partnered by Sergio
In the top team?
Yep. No, I'm joking about Sergio. But wouldn't surprise me if they did make that call back. I'm gonna say
Get
Max
him out of his contract for Cadillac.
And Hadjar, along with Lawson and whoever their next guy is.
Arvin Lindblad?
Yeah.
So Max, Isaac, Lawson, Lindblad are the top 4 that you're going with. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I honestly think I agree with you. That's probably what's going to happen next year.
And Yuki is cast to the open ocean.
See ya, Yuki. Have fun over in IndyCar, Le Mans, wherever you get a race seat. We'll check in on you.
The thing is, Yuki's not a bad driver. It's just such a bad time to get called up.
Yeah, but that's F1 most of the time is timing. Because we've seen a lot of great drivers not make it to Formula One because there were no seats available. And then we've seen a lot of bad drivers. Nick DeVries is what I'm thinking of in the top of my head is once he gets his opportunity, he just doesn't show that he has what it takes to be in F1. And now, Nick, let's get to what you teased earlier, and let's talk about Gabrielle Bortoletto getting his first points in F1, coming home 8, right in front of Nico Hulkenberg 9. So the Kick Sauber team did have a double points finish. We talk about Nui a lot, cooking up something in the car department. Matteo Binotto is cooking with that Kicksauber in preparation for them to transition to Audi in 2026.
He really is, and I've really been surprised how much that car has come alive towards this latter half of this, or towards like the middle of the season. It's been a very interesting change of dynamic to watch this car consistently fight for point positions. So I've been super excited, and I knew it was a matter of time until he figured it out, till all that race experience kicked in and he was able to put together a full weekend. But now that we saw it, I think we have a lot more to expect from these coming races.
Yeah, I think Gabrielle Bortoletto is finally feeling comfortable in the seat. I'm like you, excited about the last half of the season, and he looks like he's going to be a mainstay on this grid for years to come. So I'm super, super excited about that. And with Kick Sauber coming up through the ranks, it just makes the midfield battle so much more exciting. Like, the worst team probably on the grid is Yuki and that Red Bull, but behind them, you're looking at Franco Colapinto and Lance Stroll in that Aston Martin. So these teams are jockeying for position. These drivers are overtaking each other left and right. And it just makes that midfield so unpredictable, which makes for a racing experience and a great watching experience for us. Mm-hmm. So moving down, we talked a little bit about Isaac Hajar. We talked about, let's go into Aston Martin and Lance Stroll, because he came home 14th. Was definitely helped out by the 4 DNFs. And then we'll wrap it up with Franco Colapinto and the Alpines.
Yeah, I think Stroll was just kind of there this weekend. I did mention it earlier, but Antonelli's crash into Verstappen looked a lot like Stroll's crashes in previous races. So that was like, oh no, was that Lance Stroll? Because on the broadcast, it made their car, the Mercedes, looked really teal today. But I don't know what that was. But also,
it had a lot of that Patronus teal.
Yeah, Stroll and Alonso had a really good race today. I mean, they just were kind of there, and they haven't hit the same highs that they've hit previously, but it was still overall a pretty good race for the both of them. Fernando picking up more points, so I don't know.
So
I think Stroll needs to get the boot.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was going to bring up, because this is getting into Yuki Max territory between Fernando and Stroll. Do you think that Stroll's seat is getting that hot that Lawrence would kick out his son? Or at least move him to a business operations position rather than the driver's seat?
I really don't. I feel like he's had his run. He's been a race car driver for a long time now. He's been in the sport a while, so I don't know. I think they need to move him on and move him along, but that's just me, especially with Adrian Newey, and this is starting to become your opportunity to win championships. Mm-hmm. Once you start to really activate this car with all these new resources, I really think that it's their time to move on from him after this season, but you never know.
Yeah, I think that Lance gets one more year in F1. 2026 is going to be his final year. His dad's going to be like, okay, I've given you the car. If you can't beat Fernando Alonso in this single-seater, then we have to move on, and you can come over and help me manage the entire business, and we can become world champions, father and son, as co-team owners, or something along those lines. Because if they have the opportunity to sign Max, that's going to be their best chance doing that. And I can see Lawrence telling Lance that we've created a lot, but now to get to our final destination, we need to bring in Max so that he can take this car that we've both developed and we've both helped get here to the promised land.
100%. And I don't think it's any disservice to Lance Stroll, because he is a good race car driver. For how much crap he gets, he is a very good race car driver. I mean, one of the youngest ever to put it on a podium, but I just think his time has come up to an end in Formula One. But we are...
time to move on and trade in that race suit for a suit and tie. So, Nick, finally, let's talk about Alpine. We talked a little bit about Colapinto. I think the most exciting part was him almost running off Piastri. Gasly came home in 13th. Anything to say here?
I just think Colapinto may not get his race by race renewed, but Gasly also...
Do you think that they bring in Jack? They bring back Jack?
They could have him flipping out every single race weekend, which would be pretty funny.
I hate even the thought of that, but you never know what happens over in Alpine. Oh, I did forget. Anything to say on the double DNF for Williams today? I think it was just disappointing for them as a team.
Yeah, it just was
another
such a bummer.
Another PU failure from Mercedes.
Yeah, it was just a very interesting reliability thing, and to the time that it happened for Carlos not being able to start on the grid, that's always scary. But luckily, he was in the back. So there was not much traffic rolling through behind him.
No.
But no, it was just kind of disappointing.
Yeah, they just had to abort the formation lap and then restart after 10 minutes. All right, Nick, so that wraps up our race review. I do have one more thing to do today actually 2 more things to do today. I want to go over our competitions, and let's do a good track, bad track. All right, okay. Up next, let's do our competition results. Okay, so me and Nick made some predictions before the Austrian Grand Prix. Just to recap, Nick is up 6-5, and each week we will choose a driver to top 10 finish, a teammate battle, and a podium. So you get a point for each, and then you get 2 points if you choose the second driver in the team to outscore or outplace the other teammate, the number 1 driver, on any given weekend. So Nick, we did not great. So for our top 10, well, we did not do great in our top 10 predictions. So our top 10, Nick, you had chosen Pierre Gasly. He ended up coming home 12th, did not qualify extremely well, so you missed him. And then I chose our boy who didn't even start the race, Carlos Sainz, coming home in the top 10. Yeah, that was dead before the race even started.
Yeah.
All right. For the teammate battle, you chose Stroll over Alonso. And to your credit, we did choose these earlier in the week. We chose them Thursday before practice sessions. And during the practice sessions, P2 and FP3, you were looking real good to come home, add another 2 points. But then the race happened, qualifying happened, and Lance just fell down the grid. So you missed him. But I took our boy Gabrielle Bortoletto over at Hulkenberg. So I do get 2 points for that, and he does beat his teammate by 1 place finish, coming home 8th over the 9th place. And then finally, we have the podium, which, Nick, we didn't do awful. We each got a point. So you had Max coming home with the win, which was done really quick into this Grand Prix. Oscar coming home second, which you did get a point there. And then George coming in third, and he did not make the podium this week. And then I had Lando Norris backing our boy. Everyone on social media telling me that I'll eat crow because Piastri is going to come and just wipe the floor. But Lando gets it done this weekend. And I'm more so excited for the implications of the rest of the season, because I didn't want Lando to just roll over and let Piastri take the rest of the season. I wanted to battle up at the front, and I think that's what we're going to get. I don't know if Lando's going to win he's not going to win all the races for the rest of the year, but Piastri has something to worry about now.
100%.
And then in second, I took George. We both were on the Mercedes, riding high from that Canadian Grand Prix. Did not come home in second. And then I had Max down in third, which, like you, was done really early in the race. Any closing thoughts on that segment?
Nope.
Okay. Well, let's try to do better. We have a week off before one of my favorite races, probably besides Interlagos, the best race of the year in Silverstone.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that done, let's get into our final segment. And Nick, we are going to do good track, bad track. You have 3 per slot. Okay? Let's do that next. All right, Nick, we are playing good track, bad track. You have 3 per slot. And today we are starting off with Rainbow Road.
Rainbow Road, it's a classic. Depends on which one, but the original one on the N64 carrying on to the Wii, I'm going to say good track.
All right, putting it in good. Next, we're going to go with what I just said a second ago, and we're going down to Brazil and Interlagos.
Interlagos, it's one of the most fun tracks for overtaking rain, always a possibility. I'm going to say good track.
All right, you're filling up your good spots pretty quickly.
I know.
All right, Nick, we have next up the train track.
You may have aged yourself with this one. What
did you hear?
What's the train track?
The train track, like the track that a train runs on.
Oh, I'm gonna say bad track. Oh, okay. I didn't know that's what we were doing. I thought...
Sorry, switching it up a little bit on you. So now let's go coming up fourth, the Hot Wheels track.
I would say bad track.
All right, bad track. A little confusing.
Yeah, I didn't know that's the direction we were going with this. But so I feel pretty good about my 2 good tracks.
All right, next we're going to go with probably the most historied track on the grid, or the most historied track in F1 and Monaco.
I'm gonna say bad track. The cars are too big to race on there. Yeah, it's a fun weekend, but overall, it's a pretty boring race.
All right, and then closing out today, you do have Silverstone in your good track.
Give me that as my last good track and end it off, and I will leave a happy man.
Yeah, that's fair. I might have gone Hot Wheels over Rainbow Road just because of the length, but I'm not upset with your list today.
I wasn't expecting those. I was expecting racetracks.
just throwing in a little curveball.
Yeah, really got me, Ben.
Well, that wraps it up for us today. Nick has to head out. But Nick, your car is not starting on the grid. Your brakes are on fire. We need you to what?
Box.
Peace.